Good morning, everybody. See, the numbers are slowly creeping up. So let's just give a few more moments to allow the last few people to arrive. Welcome to the APM PFQ, so the Association for Project Management Project Fundamentals Qualification overview session this morning. There's a mouthful first thing on a Monday morning, but here we go. Like I say, just going to give a couple more moments for those last few people to arrive. Those of you that are here, by all means, you can say hello. We've got a chat box and a Q&A box. Chat box just for general this and that and the other, but the Q&A box specifically targeted questions at what I'm going to be discussing. So if any of you know each other, it might be worth saying hi in the chat. And any questions that come up throughout this meeting that are directed at me or at SPOCE, please pop them in the Q&A box. I've got a couple of my team members, Suzanne and Jean-Paul, who are going to be monitoring the Q&A, so they'll be helping me out there. And otherwise, I'll have a little browse of the chat box as we go. So, morning, everyone. It'd be great to see some hellos and highs in there. Like I say, just wait for the last few people to arrive. Morning, Martin. Yeah, got a few people coming through now. This is great. Monday morning, that's it. Morning, Simon. Monday morning, know a few people. Morning, Anita. Hamish. Look at that. It's great. Yeah, Monday morning, a few people will be, rushing around, kids to school and so on. Let's see. A few more numbers still creeping up. That's great. Claire in not so sunny Manchester. Morning, Claire. I'm in not so sunny Poole in Dorset at the moment. We had a bit of drizzle this morning, but seems to have stopped now, but doesn't mean it's any brighter out. Let's have a look. Still got numbers climbing, which is great. Those of you that have just arrived, we're all saying hello in the chat box for now, just while we wait for a few people to arrive. And if anyone's got any targeted questions, you have access to the Q&A box as well. So targeted questions at myself or the SPOCE team. We've got Suzanne and Jean-Paul here, all going to be able to answer any questions you have on the APM PFQ. And if those of you missed me doing my tongue twister, it's the Association of Project Management Project Fundamentals Qualification Overview Session. So we're going to get stuck into that any moment now. Like I say, I'm aware that there'll be a few people rushing around because it's Monday morning. So a couple more moments and then we'll have a little look. Okay, numbers are still creeping up, which is great news. APM PMQ keen. Okay, so we're not going to get into that today, Franklin, but let's have a little look. Share this session with colleagues who aren't. Will this session be available to share? If we get their details, we will be able to send them a copy of this recording. It won't be available for you to share, but we've certainly be able to get out to those if you've got other people who will be interested. Morning, Dev from Kingston. So yeah, Franklin, by all means, if you want to drop us a message, you don't have to put their details in this chat. But even if we just take your details, we can get in touch after this course is finished, after this little overview is finished, and get that link out to colleagues and friends and family who may want to have a little look at what the PFQ is all about. Without further ado, numbers are seemingly peaking off, which is great. Let's have a little look at what you're all here for, the APM PFQ. It's the entry level qualification to the APM, the Association of Project Management, a globally recognized qualification. Okay, and I'm going to run through just the very basics of the syllabus this morning. So we have a little look together. I will make you aware, this overview is in partnership with a lovely organisation called HPCA. They're a non-profit organisation who are pushing project and change for their employees in the healthcare industry specifically. So just thank you for HPCA to partnering up with us for this session. If you'd like to know a little bit more, for those of you that are in the healthcare industry, you've got hpca.uk for more information. they're more than happy to give you advice and resources, and they'll also put you in touch with people like ourselves if there's specific areas that you want to quiz them around. So massive thanks to them for partnering up with us. And yeah, by all means, go and have a little look at some more information on their site. In terms of what I want to talk you through, we've got the syllabus for the APM about to pop up on the slide. Now, we're not going to run through all of this. Like I say, this is an overview session, so I'm going to skim on a couple of these areas. Should any of you choose to come on a full course with ourselves, we'll go through each of these sections in full. We go through every detail using the best practice methods, looking at techniques you can apply into your day-to-day job. Now, if you were, with family or friends over the weekend, you say, I've got that APM overview, talk about project management on Monday morning. What do you think it's going to be about? I expect a few of these things on this syllabus will have come up. Someone will probably have said, oh, we'll probably do some planning in project management. Oh yeah, do some planning. And we'll have a look at risks and issues and how we go about staying on track. Yeah, okay, so we've got risk issues, maybe some progress monitoring going on there. How we pull a team together and how we get the best out of people and push people forwards, motivation. Okay, these things that we already know to be as part of project management. In this course, in the PFQ, we add some structure to that and we add some techniques to that. Okay, so as you can see there, you've got the 10 syllabus signpost on slide. And someone's already mentioned the words PMQ, and that's the project management qualification. Now, I'm not going to cover that today. It's the next level up from the PFQ, the Project Fundamentals qualification. But you see now there's some words appeared on the right-hand side of the slide, okay? Now, those words are the sort of words you're going to see in the PMQ exam. So outline, explain, describe, state. We don't need to worry about that, those of you that are looking at PFQ. But if those of you are looking beyond, the syllabus on the left, rather than just know what the syllabus is, you have to explain certain areas of it, describe certain things, outline, and differentiate is one they like to throw in there as a little curveball. For the PFQ, the project fundamentals, okay, we would be looking at just memorizing all of the 10 elements on the left, the techniques and the best practice approaches for that. So let's have a little look at some of the chapters in a little bit more detail. The hexagonal shapes you see on the slide there will be appearing on the slide, so you know that what we're talking about links to a certain area of the syllabus, which we value quite a lot, especially as myself as a trainer. We value this because you will be checking off as you go through a course all of the areas that could be examined upon to make sure you've covered them. So if every single box has a tick and an understanding by the end, you're good to go for an exam as far as I'm concerned as a trainer. So I'm going to give you a little taster of how we do that throughout this session as well. Let's have a little look. The purpose of project management, and you can see this links to project management and the operating environment. So we look at things in quite a generic point of view. You can see there's a lovely triangle on the slide, and if any of you are making notes in this presentation, you're more than welcome to. I think this triangle is something that the APM just gets right. The APM decided many years ago that project managers are pulled from 3 directions. One from time, one from availability of funds, and then one from the quality expectations from the customer. Because the vast majority of project managers that you speak to will either say, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, or the customer wants too much, I can't provide it. And you're going to get constrained by these 3 different things and pulled in different directions. And that's where in the center, we have the word scope. Now, scope is the totality of everything we're going to produce in our project. So when we know what we're looking to produce, whether it be a physical product, it may be an IT system or a web interface software system. It might well be a group of people. Maybe there's a team that if they have a new set of skills or qualifications, they are the project output. It's quite possible that be the case. Regardless, to produce that output, you're going to be pulled from 3 things. Cash. Do you have enough cash? Are you quite tight on cash? Time. The same questions apply. And then quality. To what extent can we build a really great high quality top spec product? Or do we have to rein things in a little bit? Now, these are not as simple as just being pulled in the 3 directions. We can balance them. I always say that project management is a bit like spinning plates, okay? We can balance these 3 points out. So if we're a bit tight on time, maybe we'll spend a little bit more money, increase the workforce, so we'll have an extra couple of people on site, and maybe the timescale comes down. Maybe costs are a little bit tight, so we choose to lower the quality of the product. We use some maybe slightly cheaper materials, or maybe we would order from a supplier, a material supplier, who's slightly cheaper but further away. So therefore it's going to take longer to get to us. Okay, it's just spinning plates. Now there are 2 more things that we can throw on this. So we've got time, cost, quality, and scope. Okay, but our benefits are variable. Our benefits as we roll through our project may increase, they may decrease, they might disappear, which would be terrible, but it is a reality that we face in projects. No project is ever guaranteed to run smoothly or finish on time or produce the product. So sometimes our benefits will completely disappear. And I'll give you a great example of this. It's one of my favorites. There's the age-old debate of Apple or Samsung. Of course, other mobile phone brands are out there, but Apple or Samsung are the 2 big players. And Samsung was producing the folding screen phones. I don't know if anyone's seen them, the flips and the folds they've got. Not a lot of people know that Apple were producing the same technology at the same time. And it was like the space race, but for mobile phones. The moment that Samsung did a press release and said, hey, there's our folding screen, Apple's benefits completely disappeared because they wanted to be first to the market and pick up market domination in the folding phone industry, and their benefits crushed, gone, overnight almost. That doesn't mean that Apple did anything wrong. Their projects were running very smoothly. I haven't spoken to anyone from Apple personally, but I've only read this through reports, all running very smoothly, but their benefits just disappeared. So benefits are a variable as well. Time, cost, quality, scope can all grow and shrink, and so can your benefits. The outcomes that you want, the desired changes that our project is looking to give you, can just disappear. They may gradually shrink, they may gradually grow. Now, we won't discuss this in this overview session, but there are actions you can take as a project manager to try and keep things on the road, okay? Keep us going forward, keep the wheels on the project, okay? But for now, we'll have a little look at one more variable, which is risk, because risks will then apply to all 5 of the things we've just discussed. Now, I say the word risk, and most people think negatively. They think risk is bad. We have this idea of something being too risky. Well, risk purely means the word uncertainty. Risk is an uncertain event, but uncertainty can be both positive and negative. If we think negatively first, the common way of thinking, these are our threats. So it may well be that our cash is being threatened. We're tight on timescale. We have a threat on our timescale. But it may well be, if we now think about a positive uncertainty or a positive risk, we call that an opportunity. It's not guaranteed to happen, but it may come through. We may have a really good positive outcome from an opportunity. And those threats and opportunities can apply to time, cost, quality, scope, and even our benefits. Okay, so when we apply risk over the top, all 6 of these variables can merge together, and there are 6 key aspects that a project manager is going to need to keep a tight hold of. Okay, let's have a little look forwards. Projects in context now. Where does a project sit in your organization? It may well be that you're running a standalone project. We'll come to you in a moment. But starting from the top, okay, every organization is going to have some strategy in place, some vision for the organization. And from that, we create what's called portfolio management. Now, again, we're not going to dabble with all the details of portfolio management now, but for those of you that are curious, think about your quarterly strategy meetings. I walk into a lot of organizations and they say, no, we don't do portfolio management. And I say, well, how do you know where your investment's going every month? And they say, oh, the board of directors get together and we discuss if we're running things in the right way. And I say, well, that's portfolio management. Portfolio management is purely making sure that the cash and time and human resource investment is going into the right programs and the right projects. And you see that I've just pulled those up on slide there as well. Programs will work below portfolios, and programs are very much looking at the outcomes, making sure that the projects we are running are doing as we wish them to do. Okay, so those programs are looking for the outcomes, they're looking for the changes. Projects produce products, outputs, physical, tangible things, or web software, or maybe even teams, like I say, people with soft skills. However, it's down to the program to use these tools, okay? I always give some light-hearted examples for this, but if a project produces a Lego set, the program will use the instructions to build the item, okay? If a project produces a bicycle, a program is teaching somebody how to ride a bike, okay? So we're making sure that the products are being used and the desired change is being achieved. And that's all the responsibility of the program. The projects, and that's what we're here for, okay? Remember, it's the project fundamentals qualification. The projects are producing products. Keyword to get a little hiccup on there, okay? The projects produce the products. Now, as you can see, there's quite a clear hierarchy on the slide here. Just because projects are at the bottom, that by no way means we are the least important, okay? Just because projects are at the bottom, there's 3 of us on slide. There may be significantly more. The bulk of the work, the production, the outputs, the management is done at project level. Without us, there's no products to even use, okay? So yes, there's a clear hierarchy in terms of communication and decision making, but in terms of job superiority, if you like, projects by no means are at the bottom. Without us, no change takes place anyway. And therefore, there is no point in having investment, which means the strategy of planning, direction and vision they have, they being CEOs and CFOs and so on, is wasted, okay, without projects. So really, we are, like I say, we're the wheels of this vehicle. We're driving us forward. Now, although there's a clear hierarchy, occasionally you can have what I've just brought up on slide there. Portfolio management, leading directly into projects. Occasionally, some organizations will choose to be without program management, okay? Because it may well be that the cash invested into a program is better saved and portfolio managers take some of that work on themselves. It may well be portfolio managers have the time to take that on themselves. It may also be that they push some of that out, they delegate that to the projects, and the projects have got to introduce some outcomes themselves. Typically, and if I go back a step, typically you'll see this hierarchy, but occasionally projects can flow directly into portfolios. Now, of course, that does also mean that portfolios can be disregarded in certain scenarios. There may be some standalone programs to try and get changes out of existing products. And there may be some standalone projects, just projects that are running to just provide a new tool. Whatever that product may be, just here's a little bit extra. We don't need to have this great big long chain of loads of people. Occasionally, standalone projects and standalone programs can be deemed appropriate. So I'm going to pause there for a moment and check back on the chat box, because that's one of the syllabus topics covered for now. Okay, so your introduction to project management and the operating environment, just going to check I haven't missed too much. Anything major I will be answering at the end. Let's have a little look here. Nothing too major at the moment. What have we got? Got a couple of comments. Martin's commented. Excellent, John Paul, thank you for covering that one. If you've got any more questions, I noticed the word Prince 2 has popped up there. I am also doing a Prince 2 overview tomorrow morning, same time. So by all means, have a little look at that tomorrow. For now, I think the APM questions are covered, so we'll have a little look on. APM is a massive advocate for different life cycles, okay? And they try and cover a broader spectrum as project management as possible. And you have 4 of them on the slide here. You've got linear, incremental, iterative, and this idea of evolutionary, okay? Let's start on the left and work across to the right. Linear is exactly as it sounds. Everything lines up. We complete this step before we move forward to the next step, before we move forward to the next step. And the product is only finished when the project is finished. Now, again, I use some wacky examples. I think the simplest to understand here is building a house. If I'm building a house and there's a family of 4, say, when I've dug a hole in the ground and there's foundations, and I invite the family, say, look, you can come and move in now. And they say, well, that's just a hole in the ground. So I lay some concrete and say, well, look, now you've got some solid foundations. And they say, well, that's just a slab of concrete. So I build some walls. You can see where this is going. I can build some walls. And they say, well, there's no roof. And then I put a roof on and they say, well, there's no furnishings. The family can only move into the house when the product is finished. And we call this waterfall, okay? We do all of the planning and we move along like a river. We do all of the development and then there's a falling off the end of the cliff, a hard handover. That's a linear project, okay? Everything's handed over at one point at the end as a finished product. Now, incremental is ever so slightly different in its approach. And for this, think of a website. If a website needs a home page, a payment page, a contact us page, and then a couple of social media pages, let's say, we don't have to push the whole website live at once. With incremental, we work in what's called an agile manner. Some of you may have heard that buzzword floating around. And we work in sprints. So sprint number 1, we'll build the home page. And then we can send the home page live. So the home page is now out there for all of the world to see. We can then build the payment page using a couple more sprints, add that to the home page, and what you'll notice is the product is slowly growing incrementally. Okay. Now the benefit here is if we can send part of the product live earlier, we're going to get benefits earlier. Okay, because people can start using the website. So there's a clear difference. Whereas linear, we cannot hand anything over until the end. Incremental, we're building the product up through lots of sprints. Iterative, slightly different again. Iterative, we are looking at products being used after we've produced them, but then we do a bit of breaking, trying to improve them. Okay, so we're saying, look, I've produced a product and now I'm going to test it. Okay, it's snapped. Now I need to build a stronger product. And now I've got the next one. It doesn't snap, but now if I pull it, it's ripped apart. So now I need a stronger product. And you keep going until the product is robust enough to meet your quality needs. Okay, so iterative is about getting a better product every time, starting with something rather basic, saying, no, it doesn't work because we've tested it, we go again. And then you build something better and then you test it and you say, well, it passed the first test, but failed the next one. How do we overcome this hurdle? And you go again until eventually it passes all of the tests. Now, this is slightly different to evolutionary on the right hand side. And you can see the SpaceX is referenced there. If any of you don't know SpaceX, it's Elon Musk's attempt to try and get us into deeper space, okay? But the origins of SpaceX was very much an evolutionary organization because he was trying to get rockets to land themselves upright, okay? If you haven't seen it, hop onto YouTube after this session. It's amazing, quite something to behold. You think the video's in reverse. But his design and SpaceX's design was evolutionary because they knew they were going to continue failing, but kept crossing off errors and routes that they can't go down anymore. So rather than testing something and breaking it, they wanted to fail to see just how badly they'd failed and then try and catch up on all of these things and then go into new ground. So keep pushing forwards. Again, it's something like 147, 146 times it took Bell to create the light bulb, okay? He knew he was failing, but there's a famous quote where he effectively says, I wasn't failing, I just didn't have it right yet. And that's evolutionary development. Rather than building something to a substandard quality like iterative and building until it's just acceptable, evolutionary is going beyond what we think is possible and trying to keep breaking the mold. Okay, so there are your 4 life cycles we would discuss in a lot more detail than we've just run through there in a PFQ course. So, and you can see that all links to project life cycles as part of the syllabus. You'd have questions on potentially all 4 of these, but very much the left 2, linear and incremental. For now, let's have a little look at the next topic, which is PESTLE. Now, I throw this in about halfway through the overview because it's one of the widely regarded techniques for working out why we are running a project. It's also widely understood, and I don't know what sort of age range of people we have here. If any of you have got children or have just finished your education, perhaps if you're around the early 20 stage, you'll notice PESTLE's now being introduced at high school level. So we're going to have a whole wave of project managers coming through that have an understanding of PESTLE. So if there's any more experienced of you guys out there that haven't spotted PESTLE before, hopefully I can help you out here and you can flex some knowledge. PESTLE: political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental. Okay. The idea being we can work out all of the different factors why we might run a project. A project is there to introduce change. Okay. Whatever that change may be. It could be solution to a problem. It could be an opportunity. It could be to gain more efficiency. It could be anything at all. But that is going to come from one of these 6 factors. It may well be that our organisation, and this is very common, hence why I'm going to use this first, our organisation wants to be more environmentally friendly. And therefore, we're going to run a project to help the environment. So therefore, our blue environmental policy there, or factor there rather, has been achieved. But you may notice that these could link together, because the one below, legislation, legal, it may well be that legally we have to comply with some new environmental laws. So we have to catch up in certain areas. It may well be that to achieve more market dominance, socially, people are seen to be attracted to environmentally friendly companies. Look, I'll admit I'm a big coffee drinker. I'm sure some people in this webinar are. I will, however, choose to go to one of my local coffee shops who have got organically sourced beans that are fair trade and like I say, have a nice traceable history of coffee bean, because socially, I like that. I like to support companies that support things from the ground roots level. Therefore, organizations rather, that choose to look after these things have a higher social standard, okay, and therefore may well achieve wider market domination. It may well be technological down the bottom there, okay. Maybe things are changing. Think about electric cars. I actually had someone on a PFQ, a project fundamentals qualification, 3 weeks ago, whose very project was putting charging parking spaces in their local area, okay, up at the east side of England. That was her entire project, was about increasing the technological standards of her local council. Political, again, reasons why you might want to start is before a general election, maybe there are certain things that work in your favour. Maybe you choose to delay a project. Maybe politically it's better if there's a change of government perhaps, and you would wait to start a project. And then of course the one I've left till last there is economic. The economic factors have never been more important, or especially not for the last, say, 10, 12 years since the last recession. With the cost of living crisis in the UK, and those of you that are global, I'm sure there's a whole crunch on cash at the moment. Economic factors may well be a reason that you start or don't start or potentially stop a project. It may well be that economically we want to be more efficient, so spending a little bit of cash now will save us cash in the future. It may well be that we choose not to run a project now because of the crunch on cash that there is, okay, across the globe. These can all link with one another, And again, if you come on a full course, we can break these down as to what is strong about each of these factors, maybe what's weak about them, the opportunities and threats that they provide for our organisation and our project. So again, I'm going to have a little look at the chat box now, just see what we've got. Martin, not heard of PESTLE. Hopefully that's a little introduction for you. By all means, if you've got any questions on that, we can cover it again at the end. Just a really useful tool to do a snapshot analysis as to where we are. Okay, doesn't look like we have much more. What's in the Q&A? Nothing at the moment. Okay, guys, no worries. So hopefully that means you've got a good grasp of PESTLE, the 6 elements there. And look, while we're on PESTLE, a typical question you might have in a PFQ examination is what are the 6 elements of PESTLE, or the 6 factors of PESTLE? It may well be which of these is not an element of PESTLE, and they might throw in something like, I don't know, it's difficult to think of one when you're on the spot. It could be anything else, okay? It might well be communication, okay, is not an element of PESTLE, because you might well subcategorize that under social, okay? So typical questions you have are like those, and we're going to run through how the exam is structured towards the end of this session for those of you that are interested in getting qualified. For now, let's see who can put themselves in this project roles and responsibilities diagram. Again, you'll notice top right, we have a slight change of syllabus. We're going into roles, responsibilities, okay? Really going to look at who does what for our project. Starting from the top down, we always have corporate or program management. The top decision makers sit at the top. And you notice that grey box there, I'm going to build up our project team within it. Now, corporate or program management, or maybe even our customer, sit outside of the project team, because they will simply be saying, we want, and then insert the want there, okay? Whatever they wish, they have the ask. They say, we want this because you have X amount of cash. And then it is down to our sponsor or the executive to manage that cash. Okay, they have the decision-making authority to spend cash in certain areas. That's a lot of pressure for one person, so they sit within a steering group or a project board. And that project board has users and suppliers. Okay, now we call them senior users and senior suppliers. Reason being is that it'll be a representative from a supplier organization or from a user group. We don't want all of the suppliers, every single bricklayer or IT technician and every single user from, maybe a large insurance company, a large insurance firm, hundreds of people that might use a new software. We will have a select couple, maybe few, representatives from each to advise our sponsor or executive, and that term is interchangeable. They'll be advising this decision maker on their points of view, okay? And we'll get more into how the steering group or this project board works as a unit in the full qualification. We then have, and I always refer to them as us, the project managers, okay? Because the PFQ, the Project Fundamentals qualification, is best delivered from a place of us. We are project managers when we do this training course, okay? And we work about how everyone interfaces with us. Because if you notice, we're the central piece. Going up or down, project managers are the heart, the day-to-day responsibility of getting things done, get things moving. We don't really do the building, but we don't do the direction either, okay? With a manager, because the direction is done above us. The board, the steering group, they direct where we go. We simply manage. And we don't do the building either, because if you notice down the bottom, we have team managers, okay? Got 3 of them there, can have more, can have less. But the idea is these are our builders, our doers, they are our producers, okay? And there are team members that work for team managers. They get actually outside of the project team because they're specialists. They're painters, decorators, they're JCB operators, IT technicians, IT security software. It could be anything, you know, they're all specialists in their fields. I've just listed off the typical ones that we know, but they really could be anything. I mentioned earlier, I live down here in not so sunny Poole in Dorset, right next to our shipping port. You know, some of the team members that I've interfaced with there are, you know, boat drivers and mechanical, marine mechanics and engineers. Okay, they come in all shapes and sizes. They're specialists, and therefore they're outside of the project team because they're not really directing to us. They're not reporting to us, rather. The team managers are keeping us updated. And that's why you see there's quite a select few individuals that fall within the project team itself. We do then have this project office. It can also be called a PMO, which is a project management office. They can be known as project support. Like I say, lots of interchangeable terms, of which APM would support them all. The project office are there to provide support to the project manager. They are going to be doing the admin, helping the project managers stay on top of reports and progress and communication. Okay, a project office can be an absolute lifesaver in terms of what they do, because we're talking about projects of what I would call a medium scale at the moment. But central government, local government are going to have projects that are huge with up to sort of 50, 60 people when you take into account team managers. The project office helps the project manager keep track of everything. Because if the project manager doesn't have track of everything, then the project is doomed to spiral into failure. So therefore, a project office is a right-hand group of people that the project manager is responsible for, but should be very grateful for. Okay, and I'm a big fan of any PMO members. So if there's any in the chat, you are a project manager's superstar. I do have some project management office members too myself. They all get a very nice little hamper from me at Christmas. Okay, because they help so many project managers. They are wonderful. So with that being the project roles, hopefully you guys can begin to apply yourselves in there. Obviously, being a webinar, I don't have time to chat to each of you, but on one of my training courses, we'll assign these roles to people and you know, see if people have got relation to their day-to-day. If there's things that people aren't doing day-to-day, we'll establish each of the roles and responsibilities of these individuals. Like I say, there's one thing me telling you guys right now, that the project manager is responsible for day-to-day management. But what does that actually mean? Okay, and I appreciate we don't have that time today, but we would do on a full course. So do, if you're interested in knowing more, do pop a little note in the chat box there, and we can break that down and even do a tailored session just on this for your organization if needs be. Okay, because there's a nice thing about the APM is it's very flexible. And we've got room to spend time on extra bits and less time on other bits that might suit your organization. Okay, the whole syllabus being covered, but it's all about the cherry on top for SPOCE. Okay, especially on some of my training courses, try and get the most out of it for you guys. So I'll give you a moment if there is anything going on in the chat box. Let's have another little look. Okay, looks like John Paul and Suzanne are all over it, which is great. So in that case, we'll have a little look here. Okay, on to what is the last syllabus topic that I'm going to discuss with you today. Obviously, there are more, such as the soft skills of leadership and teamwork, and also the quality expectations of products. These are two very large sections we're not going to touch on today. But as I mentioned, if you were with friends and family over the weekend, you said, I've got that project management seminar Monday morning, what do you think is going to be discussed? Someone's going to say the word planning. Someone's going to say plans, because that's what project managers are widely known for. Okay, we do a lot of planning because, of course, we have to. We can't go around project managing blind. We have to have direction. We need to know where we're going and the standards that we're going to adhere to. Now, we have the PMP. The project management plan, or the integrated project management plan. The idea behind this is it is a baseline. Once we have this in place, we can stick to it, work to it, and use it as a monitor for our progress. In project management, we have to make sure that we are progressing. But how do we do that? Well, we need three things. We need something to reference against, a baseline. We need to know where we actually are in terms of our data. And then we need to make an assessment as to whether or not that's where we should be. Because if we have a 10-week project and 5 weeks in, we're only 40% through the work, I would declare that we are behind schedule. If we were 60% through the work, then we'd be ahead of schedule. Okay, so we need to know, where are we referencing from? What is our baseline? Where actually are we? And then there's an assessment that we, the project managers, can make to work out if we're on track. So the purpose of the PMP is to be that baseline, to look back against, reference back against, and make sure that we are sticking to what we said we're going to do. We, the project managers, produce the PMP and get that signed off by the executive or the sponsor on the project board. And therefore they are saying, we agree to these terms. Because the project manager, us, because we have produced the PMP, that is effectively then our contract. We have laid out the terms as to what we're going to do, and the board have agreed, yes, I'm happy to fund it on that basis then. And now you can see on the left-hand side and flowing over to the right, strategies, project strategies. We've got risk and issue management plan, communication, information management plan, configuration management plan, health, safety and environment plan, a procurement strategy. All of these things lay out how we're going to go about things, how we're going to go about managing the project. Okay, I always think it's a bit of a cop-out answer for a project management trainer when they say, what does a project manager do? To say, manage the project. But this is what we really do. Okay, we're into the nitty-gritty now of all the different aspects that a project manager has to spin the plates of. We have to look after our deliverables and monitor our constraints. We have a quality plan which we need to follow to make sure that the product meets its expectations. Okay, all of these details go into the PMP. Now, I mentioned earlier that we have to stay on track and stay on top of all of these things, and we would do so using the things in the bottom right: a change log, assumptions log, issue log, risk log, and a schedule. Now it says Gantt chart. You may well choose to use a Google Calendar. You may well choose to use a basic bar chart or a line chart or a shared drive. A Gantt chart is the typical one that most project managers are going for these days. Anyone that's not familiar with Gantt chart, have a little Google after the session. Gantt doesn't start for anything. It was, I believe, Henry Gantt, an American chap, who created this style of schedule. So that's where it gets its name from. But it's just another technique that we can have a little look through. Now, there's a question there, just pop through. I'll leave that for Suzanne to do just for one moment while I finish the section on PMP. So those 5 working documents in the bottom right: change log, assumptions log, issue, risk, and the schedule. Okay, they are day-to-day products that we're using to stay on top of all of the different elements that we need to keep a hold of. Okay, risks and issues, for obvious reasons, I like to think, making sure that they don't run away from us and that we don't start spiraling. Assumptions is a really interesting one, because if I assume something, I have to make sure that everybody else knows it's an assumption. If I assume that something's going to cost £100,000 and then I get asked how much it's going to cost and I say £100,000, I didn't say I assume or estimate it's around £100,000. If I give a hard figure, people will believe it as a hard figure. So I always exaggerate. Assumptions log needs to be kept as an assumptions log to make sure people know this is a ballpark figure. And then finally, the change log. If the product or project is changing and we're adjusting things from our baseline, from the PMP, the change log is going to help us keep track of that. Okay. So with those 5 products and then all of the different parts of the integrated PMP, the project management plan, we've got really solid foundations to then run our project off of. Let's have a little look now at the exam. Okay, so that's all the content we've got time for today, because I've got about 15 minutes worth of speaking left, and then I'm going to open it up for any questions on the PFQ topic, if it's something we have discussed or if it's something that you'd like to know a little more about. The PFQ exam is a really lovely, simple format. Okay, you have 60 questions, each worth 1 mark, and you have 60 minutes to do it. So really simple, a mark a minute. And you need to get 36 or more, which is 60% to pass. It says multiple choice. Just to exaggerate this, it's A, B, C, or D. And all 60 questions have 4 solutions or 4 answers to choose from, rather. Okay. It's a closed book examination. But if you come and do a 2-day course with me or another member of the SPOCE team, we will certainly get you up to speed with all of the things you need to know for the exam. You have mock examinations, typical exam questions. We do some exam feedback with you as well after the first day. Okay. And because APM run online exams, you get your exam result in about 3 or 4 minutes time. All they've got to do from the examiner's point of view is shut down, select all the buttons they need to do to say that you sat the exam in a controlled manner and none of you had all the answers written up your sleeves, for example, and then you get your result instantly. So it's a really lovely exam to take. As far as exams go, I mean, no exam is particularly lovely to take. I'm sure a few of you are thinking that, but in terms of the usability and friendliness of this exam, it is one of the best, if not the best, in terms of format. So while we're here, is there any questions on the examination itself? Let's have a little look. Cost of the course has come up as a question. At the moment, the courses are 40% off. I was going to get to that bit right at the very end. All courses 40% off as part of our Black Friday sale. That's extended for you guys later into the week. So if you do want to get a quote and look at our course dates, pop some links up, your email address, or if you want to, raise a hand, Jean-Paul or Suzanne can certainly pick that up for you and get some course dates over to you with a quote. Let's have a look. Liz, I can see you've got a hand up. If you're able to pop that in the chat box, that would be wonderful. There we go. Look, there are Jean-Paul's jumped on that there, which is super. Yeah, look, got some information on course dates. That's no worries at all. Look, typically we're trying to run, a couple a month. So there's lots of dates for you guys to choose from. I will do quite a lot of the course dates coming up into the end of this year, going into 2024 as well. So if you are looking at joining a course, you will hopefully see me and hopefully I'll get to meet you guys properly. So you may have to jog my memory that you're on this webinar. Seeing lots of people this time of year trying to get things done before Christmas, but it'd be great to have you. So look, that's super. Those of you guys that are asking away. In terms of the exam, we'll have a little look on because we can have a look at higher levels of the APM as well. Okay, we've talked about the fundamentals, the top APM PFQ selection we've got here. Okay, the entry level route to the APM. Somebody mentioned the PMQ earlier on, someone in the chat, I can't remember who now. That's the project management qualification. Okay. Now, the project management qualification is a 5-day course and has a written exam at the end. Now, you are more than welcome to go straight in at the PMQ, but if you're just, dropping a toe in the water of project management, maybe I would go with fundamentals first. That choice is yours. It depends how confident and how much experience you have, but there is no prerequisite for the PMQ. Okay. All of the syllabus, the 10 elements of the syllabus are covered in both courses, but it's the level of detail you go into with the PMQ goes deeper again. And rather than just understanding what they are and why we use them, the PMQ will ask for how we use them and the best ways of using them. Does one way work over another? And it asks really for what's your judgment? What do you think we should do? Rather than more memory testing of the PFQ, the fundamentals. Okay. So there is a key difference there. And again, if you'd like more information on PMQ as a higher level, pop that in. Make sure you specify which one you're interested in the chat now. Obviously, I may have just muddied the water by bringing this slide up. But if you're after one or the other or both, I would potentially specify that in the chat as well for Jean-Paul. And then finally, we've got this here, okay, and you can see you've got this big yes in the chat box. By all means, have a little look. But when you go beyond PMQ, you have this idea of being a CPP, which is a Chartered Project Professional. Now, there are several routes to achieving Project Professional at a chartered status, all of which will flow to the APM directly. If you would like more information, because it's quite a lengthy path to get there, usually I think I've seen someone do it in around 6 months at the quickest. But if you are interested in trying to achieve chartered status, we do have documents we're going to send you after this course, which you can request about chartered project professionals and the route to get there. So again, if you wish to be chartered status and go through the process to get there, and you know, it's a great process to get through. It's you know, chartered for a reason. It's an honourable thing to do. Do have a little look at that in the ebook that we can send you. Okay. So then finally, just a little bit about SPOCE, because we've got through the content and I think we're finished with us. We've been doing this for 30 years. We've got some of the first certificates ever given out by the APM to some of our candidates, but also some of our employees and some of my colleagues have got some of the first APM certificates, number 1, number 2, and so on. We cover all sorts of other methodologies, so if there are questions on other methods, do let us know. And those of you that are interested in Prince 2, by all means, come and join me again tomorrow morning for a 9:30 Prince 2 webinar. It's a different link, but again, you can pop a message in the chat if you're after the Prince 2 link. And of course, then tomorrow you're able to ask questions as the pros and cons between them both, the differences. With the courses that we run, you notice that third bullet point. We can do in-house, that's at your venue or potentially at one of ours. We can do virtual classroom, so we can do this, but we have a select group of sort of 10 to 12 people with your webcams and microphones on, and we have what is just like a normal classroom, but from the comfort of your home or office. We've got e-learning, we've got recordings of sessions, we've got an on-demand learning platform, so it's like a virtual classroom, but you don't have to attend live, okay? And this can be done across the globe. No matter where you are, time or day, we can train UK, Australia, Canada. You know, I've been all over the world this year, hoping to go all over the world next year, hopefully to meet some of you guys, wherever you may be. But if I can't get to you, then we can hop on a web course face-to-face. Now, look, like I say, 40% off the Black Friday extension is for you guys. So if you do want to take advantage of that, I would get something in the chat box there. So otherwise, look, my final slide there is thank you for your attendance, which really leads me to, I'll come back to this. Is there any questions at all for me or for Suzanne or Jean-Paul about the method, about other methods? You know, what have we got? We've got a few people interested in the Prince 2 for tomorrow, which is great. And if you are looking at coming back tomorrow, we're going to talk about the differences between the new Prince 2.7. It's just gone through an update about 3 or 4 months ago and has a few updated best practice details. So yeah, lots of people. I think Suzanne's just put a link in there for you guys to have a little look at. That should be able to get you onto the Prince 2 webinar tomorrow. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Suzanne. And we'll have a little look between the new Prince 2.7 that they've released, this update. Nicola wants some interesting information on MSP, managing successful programs. Yeah, absolutely, Nicola. I'm sure Jean-Paul can send that over to you. And like I mentioned earlier, we have these programs talking about outcomes. Yeah, same for Richard, wants MSP. Great. we have these programs looking at producing outcomes, okay, using the outputs from projects and achieving the desired change, okay, the benefits that we talk can grow and shrink. You guys going on MSP will be looking at how we can get the absolute most out of them and looking at cost efficiency to get the biggest return on investment, or ROI, some of you will have heard of. Super, few more for MSP, which is great. MSP, yeah, lots of MSP. Excellent. Let's have a little scroll up because I may have missed a few. Yeah, Jean-Paul put some delivery formats for the PFQ and the PMQ. Excellent. Cool, great. So is there any questions on the topic at all? Look, we do have our left half an hour there for Q&A. So if any of you have got anything you'd like to know a little bit more about, we can run through specific areas. By all means, if anyone's interested, let's have a look. Yeah, great. JP, Jean-Paul there is looking at sending things directly for MSP, which is great. I'm not doing a webinar on MSP on this occasion. We're purely sticking to the project side of things for now. But if that's something you're interested in, we can have a look at those for you. Okay, so any questions on any of the syllabus areas? I can, if I whiz this PowerPoint back to the start for a moment, might be worth if you want to pick any brains and get some more information on any of those 10 topics there. What do we think, guys? PFQ, PMQ, Chartered Project Professional, excellent. Denise is going all the way. Wants MSP as well, awesome. Yeah, Denise, if you're going to go through that route, I'm sure I'll see you some point soon. Yeah, not a problem at all. It's great. Any details on planning? Best tools to use? Microsoft Project. You've beaten me to it, Richard. Microsoft Project. Yes, no worries at all, Daniel. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again soon. Yeah, look, Microsoft Project is the typical way to go, okay? There isn't one that we spoke or even the APM will prescribe. Wonderful to meet you, Martina. Look, those of you that are disappearing, all the best and hope to see you soon. Drop us a follow on LinkedIn and we can stay in touch if there's any questions you have at a later date that you might want to ask, okay? So that's the best way to get in touch with SPOCE and myself if you've got any technical questions that want answering quick fire. Let's have a little look. Let's go back to programs. No, not programs. Planning first. Richard, let's answer your question. SPOCE, we don't push one tool or the other, and nor do the APM, but Microsoft Project is the most commonly used, okay? You'll find that OneDrive is really interfacing quite closely with it now, and with more and more people using SharePoint and their OneDrive and Teams, Microsoft are kind of hoovering up the market in terms of having this integrated web of virtual project platform. Because we all started with things like Zoom for virtual meetings, and now Teams is really kicking off. Look, we don't prescribe one or the other. I'd just tell you that that's the most common. If you ask me, I still do a lot by pen and paper, yeah, and I've still got a few little documents hanging around. I work on some small scale projects now, so I can afford to do that. But if you're in larger organizations, like I say, you think healthcare or you think technology, you need to share those with remote teams. So yeah, look, I always favor virtual documents, but sometimes, you know, you can't beat the old pen and paper. Okay, so in terms of the tools you use, we don't prescribe. What I will say is techniques, okay? If you come and join us on any of our courses, we'll look at how we plan. Because there's one thing saying, I'm going to run a project, but that is vastly different if we're building a helicopter to a web system, okay? So we approach planning from a product point of view. We know what we're building first and why we're building it, why we need it, before we go about how we're going to do it. Because it may well be, in the example I give on my training courses, if we're building a school, it may be that we need a school by September next year, before the next school year starts. However, it may well be that we don't need that school until September in 2025. So how we go about planning that, we need to know what we're building, why we're building it, and we break down using PESTLE again and our strengths and weaknesses as to what we're producing. So like I say, there's a little bit more on that for you there. But we go about the products first before we actually get to the planning, and then we go through planning techniques, okay? But not so much about the tools. Let's have a little look. What other questions have we got? Yeah, an MS project. That's great. Many thanks. Yeah, no worries. Good to see you guys. Have you got a template we can share for a communication plan? Interesting question there, Elizabeth. Look, there are standards of which, you know, we might be able to send you one of those. Suzanne might be able to dig something out for you. But over the last few years, people have been tailoring and adapting their communication plans more and more, because the standards used to be postage, okay, written letters, and it would be what post have we received, what have we sent. And that already, although only a few years ago, sounds a little bit dated, because more and more people these days are using virtual methods. So it is just as quick as looking at your emails, your sent inbox, and saving it to a shared point. So a communication plan and a communication log, while we still need a method for communication, people aren't using such a grid format anymore of has this been received, has this been sent, checkboxing exercise. It's a really curious thing to say. I think 10 years ago, people wouldn't have believed how virtual projects now are. But there's a massive shift, and that's why APM changed their methodology ever so slightly a few years ago to keep up with this. Prince2 have done the same this year, just to adjust to these virtual teams, okay? APM really saw, it was just as the COVID pandemic broke out, where the trend was going and hopped on that. So you can learn a lot more about communication and the best methods of and how we communicate with each other, how we receive feedback took a significant knock throughout this virtual world that we've got post-pandemic. And APM managed to get all of that nailed first time when they updated their method. So we could look at that at the communication section of the course. So yeah, templates for communication plans are one of the more oddball ones, you know, the less frequent ones asked for, but we can certainly have a little look at maybe getting something out to you with some information on that. What have we got? What are the differences in APM, Agile PM, and Print2? Well, Sophie, great question. Look, we'll do the two that are similar first, okay? Got APM and Print2. Both are typical waterfall styles, okay, where we trundle along and we have the hard handover at the end, okay, we'll talk about earlier. Print2 is a little bit more rigid in its framework, okay, best used when all of an organization has some sort of understanding, or certainly anyone in your project team does. APM's more flexible. Now, pros and cons, of course, is that Print2, you'll often find Print2 project managers are robust in their way of thinking because they have a really tight framework to stick to. But APM allows you to have this freedom to open up and integrate part of your day-to-day working environment in as well. Now, there's no one better than the other because it's nice to have robustness because the project is sometimes regarded as safer in its management. But with the APM, you have this creativity and flexibility to integrate to your day-to-day working environment. It's not to say that Print2 can't. It's just a little bit more tricky when you're doing it on your own. If there's a couple of you in the team that have got it, it becomes a lot easier, a lot quicker. Okay, so very similar in their approaches. APM does take in a little bit more agile, whereas Print2 does not. Now, Agile PM, a slightly different one because it comes from this agile iterative approach, okay? Agile PM is about sprints. Obviously the PM standing for Agile Project Management, looking at sprints and how we run these iterative projects, typically the web design style projects, okay? Doesn't have to be, but can be. And it's looking about getting benefits early into projects, whereas APM and Print2, while this is referenced, is not the focus of those two, okay? So Agile PM is looking about having this repeatable cycle, getting benefits early, and creating as best product we can by the end. We've got overviews for the three, which hopefully if Jean-Paul, you can find Sophie, she asked the question at 10:27, we'll be able to get some details out to those of you that wish to have this on all three of those courses. Okay, but there's a little bit of an understanding. Prince2 is a really solid framework. Agile PM is a little bit more flexible. APM is a bit more flexible, and Agile PM is about this iterative cycle. Okay, a different method in its approach. Few people dropping off. That's great. No worries. See you tomorrow. That's great. Lovely to have you join me tomorrow. Excellent. Elizabeth seems to like the bit earlier on. Yeah. Dio's gone. Okay, and no worries. Can you send me some more routes about the charter status? Yes, no worries at all, Charlie. I've just seen that come through. We'll get that over to you. There's a whole pathway that you can follow. There's 3 pathways you can follow. All of them end up with you talking to the APM directly by the very end, because they're your assessors. Yeah, look, they are. Suzanne's got a brochure she's going to send out to those of you guys that wish to have this. All of which you'll end up with the APM and their assessors. But of course, you want to start with us at the bottom level to get your foundation fundamentals qualifications done and your project management qualification. Let's have a little look. Hannah, do you have any info about the best qual for job role? I work in HR and not sure the best qual to focus on. Look, I can't start giving you too much advice on that, Hannah, because I don't get the full background there. But Jean-Paul is certainly able to give that information to you because he can listen to your needs and we can choose or push you to the right course that we think would suit you. Of course, you're the ultimate decision maker. So, of course, we'll present you with the options and then you'll be able to make that judgment. But there's one thing saying, look, come on this course. But it's a great question you ask. Let's we can hear what position you're in exactly and go from there, because there's lots of people from HR courses that come on a wide variety of our methodologies, okay, in our courses, but they all vary ever so slightly differently, because HR in local council is vastly different to HR in healthcare and HR in insurance, say. Okay, so really interesting position. I would give maybe JP an email or a call at some point, and he can run you through those. And that's for any of you that want maybe which course is best for your position in terms of your job role, job opportunities, going one step further. Okay, we can certainly have a look at that for you. So, Hannah, sorry, I've kind of avoided your question there, but I just don't know quite enough from that to push you in one direction, and I wouldn't want to, mislead you or guide you down a path that wasn't quite right. Let's have a look. There's a question there. Excellent. Suzanne's picked up on that question. Excellent. A few people want the full information. Yep, Richard wants all the links and documents. I think Richard fancies the full array, which is great. No worries, Elizabeth. Lovely to meet you. Yep, no worries at all, Sophie. Excellent. Okay, so that's a few people dropped off. No further questions at the moment, but by all means, I'm still here. So if you have any about what's on slide, any of the areas of the syllabus, it could be the exam, it can be the PMQ. By all means, anyone got any more questions, guys, because I am here, no problems at all. Otherwise, I can see a few people disappearing, but it's been wonderful to have you with us. Excellent. See you tomorrow, Denise, for Prince2. Everything's going to be sent to you via email, Hamish. Okay. So if you want more details, by all means, I'm sure you've specified above, but it's all going to get sent over via email. If you did want a phone call, by all means, you can either schedule that in with Jean-Paul, because he's a busy man, as you can imagine, but he's more than happy to have those conversations. Look, there you go. There you are. If you do wish to have a call, you can email, which is super. So thank you, everybody, for your time. If there are any more questions, please fire them in. Otherwise, look, if you do want the Prince2.7 course tomorrow, the overview tomorrow, let me know. And, see you there. Excellent. No worries, Hamish. Have a good day. Hopefully see you tomorrow if you're on your way back. If not, all the best. Stay in touch. Denise, yeah, goodbye, Denise. See you later, Hannah. And, yeah, thank you for joining us, guys. All the best. So how many have we got? Yeah, still a few. Just give it a few more moments in case someone's asking any questions. Someone's frantically typing something out. Okay. In that case, well, look, thanks for joining, everybody. The last few here, just double check that there's nothing being typed out. I don't think so. A few people disappearing there. So thank you for joining, everybody. And like I say, if you are joining tomorrow, see you then. If not, we'll see you all very soon. So goodbye for now. See you then. Bye.